Hello, my name is Dara. I'm one of the co-founders here at Classwise AI. In this video, I'm going to walk you through end-to-end how to use Classwise to grade faster, empower teachers, and empower students alike. So we're here in the Classwise dashboard. You can simply get here by going to www.classwise.ai, creating an account, and logging in. On this dashboard, I can see high-level statistics, and I can see all the classes that I currently teach. Now, if I want to add or create a new class, I can simply come to Add Class. I can either create a class manually by giving a name, grade level, and subject, or I can connect to my learning management system. In this case, I'll import a class from Google Classroom, and in here, I'm able to see all the classes that I teach. In this class, I'm going to import the AP Literature class. Once I click Confirm, all the students and the assessments in that particular class will be imported. And as you can see here, AP Literature is here already. We'll come back to exploring the power of the learning management system integration, but for now, let's go to grade 8 algebra, a class that we created manually. So first, we can see high-level statistics for this particular class. We can see a roster with the list of all the students in this class, as well as their average scores. And in the Assessments tab, this is where we can create new tests or new assignments that we want to grade. I'll click Add Assessment. I'll give the assessment a name, so let's call this Midterm Exam. And I'll provide all these other details. Here, because the Classwise AI grader is going to give feedback, I can select between concise, moderate, and detailed how verbose I want the feedback to be. For this example, I'll stick with moderate, and I'll go to next. Now, Classwise is so powerful because all I need to do is to upload the question set, answer key, and the grader would use all that to grade my students' assessments. So first, I'm going to upload the question set. Let's take a look at the answer key. The answer key can be a rubric. It could be the set of correct solutions that the AI will use to grade the students' work. But notice here, there's no particular point breakdown in this work. The teacher didn't have that, but using the rubric enhancer in Classwise AI, Classwise AI will generate a rubric that will be used to grade. This rubric will be used by the grader, and the teacher can also use this for future auditing. So as you can see here, in a matter of seconds, the rubric enhancer has generated a strong rubric for this assessment. It defines the points breakdown as well as how points should be awarded for each question. Now the teacher remains in full control, so they can either make changes to this rubric in here manually, or they can chat with the rubric enhancer to make updates to the rubric. I think this looks pretty good, so we're just going to finish the setup. And we're taking into the particular assessment. Notice that the status for all the student submissions is missing. So for manual classes, the teacher can upload the submissions for each student one by one, or back on the assessment screen, they can select Upload Submissions, and they can upload a stack of scanned students' submissions. So here we see this stack of submissions. You can see that it's several different pages of all the students' work piled together in a single stack. They'll just select the number of pages per student, and the platform would automatically split these submissions into separate documents. And now when the teacher looks through the document, they can assign a particular submission to a particular student. So now all the submissions have been assigned, and we can simply click Create Submissions. Now the status changes to Not Graded. And if we click on any particular student, we are able to see the submission for that student. Now in here, the teacher can either click Grade manually, or back on the assessment screen, they can click Grade All. And now the Classwise AI grader will go through all the submissions, grading it against the rubric and the answer key. So this is going to take a few minutes. This is the kind of thing where a teacher can grade and go for a walk or go for a cup of coffee, and when they come back, all the submissions will be graded. So let's go and come back. All right, this literally took a few minutes, and the whole class has now been graded. So we can come in here, we can see every single student, we can see their scores, but notice here that some of them have needs review. We will come back to that shortly. Let's look at the grading of a particular student. Let's look at Liam's scores. So we notice here that Liam's submission is on the left side, And on the right side, we have the grades and the feedback. So in the top right, we see the total grade that he got, 47 out of 60. And when we scroll, we are able to see the feedback for every single question. It seems like he did a pretty good job in these first ones. So let's look for one that he may have struggled with quite a bit. So we see question 22. Let's scroll to that question and see. So we see the score that he only got 1 out of 3, and this score is aligned with the rubric. And we can see here the feedback. You made a good start by correctly substituting the double angle identities. However, you lost points because the expression wasn't fully simplified to show it was equal to cot theta. And then it tells Liam to be sure to carry the algebraic simplification all the way through. So with this kind of feedback, Liam doesn't only know his score, but he knows where he did well and where he didn't do so well and where he lost points. With this, tomorrow he's able to take this learning and this feedback and improve upon in the next assignment or test. In a similar way, looking at question 24, he gets this rich feedback. However, points were lost because the initial factoring was incorrect. Now, this is something that teachers I've heard struggle with. They're unable to give students timely feedback to help them get better. But with Classwise, you can do so. And we can look at so many other students. For all these other students, we're able to see the richness of the feedback for every single question. Now, let's take a look at the ones that need review. So we've implemented a system where the AI grader can flag certain questions that the teacher should review and cross-check the score. So question 11, we're able to compare what the student did with question 11, and in this case, I believe the AI grader is correct, and I'm going to click accept the AI grading. Now, if there are some other questions inside of this assessment that need review, they would also show up here. And after reviewing, you can either change the grades manually or you can accept the AI grading as well. Now, one thing I'd like to call out here is that the feedback and the scores can all be changed by the teacher. So in this situation, if I go to question 21, I can perhaps make this a 0 versus having it as a 1. And I can simply, change the feedback and say, and I can change the feedback as a teacher. And whenever I save this, the score updates and the new feedback is reflected here. So with all of this, I'm able to grade my students' assessments quickly. Now, this is a class or an assessment that isn't connected to a learning management system. And so if I want to get this feedback to the students, I can simply click download all feedback. Now a zip file is going to open, and in this zip file, I'm able to see the feedback for every single student, as well as a PDF document that has all the feedback in one. So let's look at one of the students, and in here, I can see a detailed report with feedback for every single question. I can then give this feedback to Liam so he knows how to do better next time. All right, that took us just a few minutes. Now, Classwise AI goes beyond just grading. With Classwise, teachers can generate analytics for each of their assessments. So in here, I have midterm selected, and I'm going to create generate analytics. It's one thing to just grade and give students scores. It's another thing to understand where your class is struggling and how to help them better. And that is what analytics does. So let's give it a minute to generate the analytics, and we'll come back and have a look. And now the analytics have been generated. Awesome. So here we're able to see high-level statistics like the average score for this particular midterm exam, the number of students who are scoring above 85%, and some other metrics here. Now we're also able to see a distribution across all the assessments. So we can see that for the midterm exam, the students scored 62% on average, whereas for the final exam, the score kind of dropped to 55%. Now specifically for the midterm exam, we're able to see a score distribution. We see that 22% of students scored between 0 and 49, while only 11% of students scored above 90%. So already the teachers are able to see how students are performing across the board. Now we get to this very exciting section, the students who need support. So we're able to flag the students that need some extra coaching or need some extra support from their teachers. We show the student's name and the score they got on this assessment, but we also show the focus areas. Now, we can see here for Sophia, she had issues with graphing transformations, solving trig equations, and quadrant and sine rules. We go beyond that such that when you click on the student, you're now able to see a detailed breakdown of what these different focus areas mean. For Sophia, we can see that the struggle area of graphing transformations is explained, and we also give the teachers a recommendation for how to help Sophia, such as telling the teacher to review the relationship between a tangent function equation and its graph with Sophia. Now, for all the students who have this struggle area, we are able to generate these explanations and recommendations. Now, specifically for the entire class, we see focus areas to reteach. These focus areas, we show the number of students that have this as a focus area, and we're also able to explain what this focus area is about. Now, this isn't just fun statistics. This is real, impactful knowledge that the teachers can use to go back to class to reteach some of these struggle areas before going on to the next topic. All right, so we've looked at how to grade in minutes and we've looked at analytics. But remember, back on the dashboard, we had this AP Literature class that we imported from Google Classroom. Now, this is a very powerful integration with learning management systems because for teachers who use learning management systems, they don't have to actually upload student submissions manually. So let's come in here and we're going to create a new assessment. So let's create an assessment. For this part, I'm going to show you how Classwise goes beyond just math, but can grade any subject that you have. Once again, we'll select the feedback level to be moderate. And then if we have this add assessment to LMS, this means that when we create this assessment, it will be populated back to the learning management system. Students will get a notification and can start submitting their work. So let's take a look at the answer key. We can see that this is the real AP scoring guideline. And here we can provide special instructions to the AI. In this case, I'm just going to ask it to grade only question 1, and I want the feedback to be split up in a particular way. Now, because the scoring guideline is pretty detailed, I'm just going to skip the rubric enhancer because the rubric already is pretty detailed. Now on this screen, we can see that the status for each student is missing. This is because none of the students have submitted their work. So I can either still upload their submissions manually, or students, when they submit in Google Classroom, their submissions would show up here in Classwise. So let's have the students submit their work and come back to class. So we're back in Classwise. The status still says missing, but as soon as we click pull from LMS, we can directly get those student submissions from Google Classroom and grade them right here in Classwise AI. So now the status has changed to not graded because the submissions have been synchronized. And if we go into a particular student, we are able here to see the submission of that student directly here in Classwise. Now look at this. No manual uploads had to happen. The submissions are here. And once again, we can now click grade all and the grading will kick off. So we can see now the grading is completed. One student scored 3 out of 6 and the other 2 scored 6 out of 6. Now for these particular students, we're able to dive in and look at their feedback. So this student scored 3 out of 6 and we can see the feedback once again for this essay. Now, how do we get the feedback and the grades to the students? 2 ways. Once again, we can download all the feedback here, or we can simply click Publish Grades. When we click Publish Grades, the students back in Google Classroom would see their grades, and they will also see a link to access the feedback. So now, all the grades have been published, and the students now have access to their feedback and scores. Now, we just saw several things. We saw how we created a class or imported a class from the learning management system. You saw how we graded submissions either manually or through the learning management system. And you saw how we were able to generate rich analytics to help teachers support their students better. That's Classwise AI. It's available now, so give it a try. Thank you.